Well, welcome everyone. We are back again today for the our three consulting amigos doing a MiroGiants expert topic. We are joined. You may, if you're counting, you may well have noticed that there are four amigos here, and Ray is back from his trip to South America. And since John Mills, who joined us last time, um, did such a nice job on the family because of it, he's got a lot of family experience in business, dealing with families who are in business. So we invited him back to talk about how to manage the family-owned business as the third part in our series. And so we'll kick it off, and each one of these guys will jump in as the need arises to keep me on track. So the family business, as we briefly talked about last time, just to kind of remind you, is really composed of three distinct sort of functions. You've got the family, of course, and the business, of course, and then there's the issue of ownership, because you're going to have some overlap between some of the family members or all of the family members and ownership. And so how do you really handle that? And we talked a little bit about family dynamics last time. And if you'd like to see that particular video, we'll have it linked at the last frame of this video, so you can just click on it and go back and see number two. Here are a couple of things that make the family business culture tough. And this is a slide, Ed, that I think you put together. So you wanna run through these kind of point by point, and I'll bring them up for you.
Sure. Thank you, Ron. Yeah, the culture of a company kind of like is the engine that keeps everything going. At least that's my analysis. When you're not thinking about things, the culture reminds people how business is done and the way that particular business does business. So it's very important, and it can really lead to a lot of positive results in the financial statements of a company. And unfortunately, with the family business, you're not focusing just on the business. You got the family and you got ownership issues, as Ron indicated in the previous slide. And one of the issues is money may not be the number one priority for the business. And that's a challenging aspect, because I think if you focus on the business and you focus on making money on the business, everything else kind of falls in line. And the other thing that is pretty prevalent in family business culture is that it's more than a job. It's really the status of the family in their community. And it takes on more than a job, and they get involved with a lot of different related activities. They could be on boards of nonprofits, etc. So it's more than just a job. It's more long-term than that. Another weakness related to the culture could be entitlement, because you're a family member, you feel like you're entitled. And this really is in direct conflict with the business, because there shouldn't be any entitlements. People should do what's best for the business, and you should put people in slots that are directly related to that business so that the business can prosper. So anyway, entitlement is a challenge, and it's a challenge for whoever's leading the family business. They got to make sure they keep it in check. Family relationships can be complicated and stressful. Well, we're all aware of that. It's very difficult to run a business with a family member or with anybody that you have a difference of way of doing business. You're constantly rubbing up to each other on a daily basis, trying to deal with challenges of the business. So it is complicated and it is stressful, and somehow you got to figure out a way to maneuver through those types of challenges. And focus more on the family and lifestyle. I think this is a general issue with most family businesses, that instead of doing what's best for the business, sometimes they focus more on their lifestyle and the family. So the business might not be able to kick off the amount of money they're taking out of the business and survive and take advantage of opportunities down the line. So sometimes it's a piggy bank that's got more coming out than going in. And the last point I'd like to mention is that working with anybody over time, especially family, a lot of resentment can set in to the equation, and somehow you got to be able to move beyond that and not let that focus on water cooler activities rather than dealing with issues straight on with everybody. So that's really important. And I think Ron did a great job putting the slide together. Thank you, Ron.
Well, I think you did most of that, but I just copied it. So then we kind of go, okay, you've outlined all of these things that we've talked about, some of them, and they're all true, and they're important in various ways. But the issue is that if you've got a family, you got to deal with your family, and you got a business, and so you got to deal with the business. And we talked last time about trying to separate those to some degree and keep everybody accountable, if you will. But as we talk about, so how do you manage this? One of the issues that we have is that many times families are reluctant to hold others in the family accountable, and they may actually do this with people, employees, but somehow the family tends to get away with things. Then they'll also kind of support the employees that they like. They end up having like favorite employees, and then of course the employees always are jockeying to try and get to know the family members better. And so you just have this relationship that is, it's really, it goes away from the accountability, and it goes sort of towards an aristocracy type of management, which of course we know kings have done that for I don't know how many centuries, probably millennia. Eventually we worked pretty hard to get away from that. Businesses began, by the way, to be successful as they got away from being controlled by government and by family members in the mercantile era. Many times they actually will allow the employees to manage them, because many of them, not being really built for business or maybe trained, they can be manipulated. So you've got family things going back and forth, and you've got I don't know, all kinds of interpersonal things going on. And really, while you want to have a good team, you don't want any of this favoritism going on in a business if you're going to try and manage it according to well-managed businesses. And then they have challenges in evaluating their employees. They don't know how to do that. That's really where the skills come in. And they have a tendency to meddle in the day-to-day processes where they really shouldn't be, by having an opinion. After all, they're an owner, but they may not be a supervisor of a particular person. They have, as Ed has really continued to bring forward over and over and over again, difficulties in determining who the successor is going to be in a family situation where you have 2, 3, 4, 5 folks in the family, a larger business, or maybe a third generation. It's like, who's going to run things? And now you've got this popularity contest. They don't have good ways to evaluate who's the best person for that job, who can make the business more successful and grow it. And they're really not very good at doing planning. We've talked about planning many, many times at the Three Consulting Amigos, and I think we all universally agree that we've never really gone in and sat down with a family where they had really great plans. They just don't tend to do plans. And of course, the big one is, and Ed is all over this, is that they tend to be undercapitalized. They might be profitable, but people do funny things with the money. They'll get involved in setting up a trust or buying buildings with different ownerships, and splitting off divisions where you have different percentage ownerships. You get all these things going on, and it's not necessarily built. And as a result, money gets taken out of the business. And if you don't have a plan, you don't know how much money to leave in the business. So it's typically family planning and business planning are poorly done. So then the question is, well, my goodness, this is really always a challenge in the family business. And so what are we going to do about it? And so here are a few of the things that we thought we'd talk about. Sorry, that didn't come up the way it was planned. That's okay. Number one, define the governance. Who are the strategic decision makers? In other words, should you have an advisory board? Who's on that? Does every owner gets to be on a governing body? Is it the actual board of directors who has the fiduciary responsibility to run the company? How are you going to do that? Or a little committee or a big committee? But that's got to be defined. And many times the founder is the one who sort of takes the paternal aspect of, well, I'm the dad, and your mom and I built this business, and we're going to tell you kids how it works. And there's a certain amount of that because they've earned it, but there are also times when the kids are actually a little bit sharper than the parents give them credit. And I think we've all seen that too. So you want to define a structure. We talked a little bit about governance last time, so go back and check that out. But you've got to define a structure. Who's the president? Who are the management people and the supervisors? You've got to have an organizational chart. That sounds so simple, yet so many don't have one. And it's just constant in dealing with family matters. You've got a problem with Jose. And and Mary has got a problem here, and nobody knows who they report to. Ray, you deal with this kind of stuff all the time. Talk a little bit about the need for organization and supervisory lines of authority.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. I think one of the challenges that we've all seen, but it's extremely difficult when you have family members who are now in a position where they have either some authority or don't. And the truth is, anybody who's in an employee-employer relationship is going to defer to an owner or a sibling or a child of the owner, simply because their fear is that if they do something or say something wrong, it could jeopardize their position. So as a consequence, my experience has been that information that should be passed on to the real management owner, the paternal owner, may in fact not be passed on, simply to maintain the security of some person in a job situation, and they don't want to offend some child who has authority but no understanding of what needs to be done. So I agree with you. I think it creates some real problems, and unless there is a communication structure which permits people to communicate and encourages them to communicate, sometimes you don't get the information you need to be able to effectively run the business.
Right.
Yeah, if I could jump in there, I totally agree with so far what's been said. The issue here in this defining the governance and the decision makers is they're all very well intentioned and it looks good on paper. But as we have all discovered, that you have the black line responsibility and authority connections, but in reality, who's running the business are not even on that piece of paper. And it can be, it doesn't have to be, it can be that the spouse of the CEO or the spouse of the president is actually the one who's making the decisions on investments, not the CFO. And when it comes right down to it, it's the people who are not even on that strategic decision maker chart that end up making it. And this is where I think the classic problem with a family business is that the people who are actually on the chart should be those who are in charge and are communicating. And if we allow family members to work through the back channels of the spouses, that could be male or female, and you get the kids talking to the husband or the wife of the decision maker, and they end up lobbying and getting things done their way. At some point, not only do the rest of the members of the team know, but the employees know that at the end of the day, it's the spouse that makes the decisions. And they're not even on the decision maker chart. So
Yeah.
I would say the number one issue is to make sure that the actual business operates in the manner with which it has been outlined. And that if just because you're an owner does not mean to say that you're actually a decision maker in the business.
Right.
You may be an influencer, you may be the biggest influencer, but you're not the decision maker in the business. And that's really hard to educate. In fact, it's possibly in some cases that the family is so enmeshed in their manipulation style, they're so enmeshed in dialoguing, talking about it, that, you know, you might as well take that chart and throw it out.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. You know, it's kind of, it could best be described as a ghost organization, you know, and the employees all know that it's the ghost organization that runs everything. And what you see, you know, more formally is not literally what happens in many family-owned businesses.
So
Yeah.
that can be overcome, and it has been overcome by the successful family businesses who, you know, they will empower. And I think one of the classic examples of this is having a CFO or an accountant who's an outside member. And probably in a lot of family businesses, that's the first person who gets brought in who's an outside member, because the skill level simply isn't available within the family. So you have to bring in a financial expert. And at some point, you've got to entrust that financial expert to make decisions appropriate to the vision and mission. And if you fail to do that, then at some point you've got to say, what good is having that guy there? You know, and that is really the number one. When family members say, no, we want to sell this piece of property and we want to buy another one because we like it, or we want to move from this state to another state because I don't want to live here anymore.
Right.
And, you know, the CFO goes through all the tax consequences and all the what ifs and said, here's what's going to happen. You've got to, at some point, allow the accounting, the paid consultants to actually run their piece of the business. And sometimes people don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, of course, that's why we run.
And you don't know anything about that, do you?
Yeah. Right.
Oh, that's very true what you said. It's so accurate. And unfortunately, they don't want to hear some of the things that make sense. They don't want to deal with the facts. They still want to do what they want to do that's best for the family rather than the business.
Right. And I think that what we've tried to say over and over again is, you know, get some outside advisors to help you in certain areas. And they're also very good at analyzing, you know, what's going on with the people within the family. And that needs to be listened to. Although it's rare in my experience, it's rare to have a good numbers guy also be really good in interpersonal relationships with the family. And so that's a rare person. It's hard just to have your CPA who does your financials every month just come in and be able to properly evaluate.
That's true.
It's numbers. Very tough.
So one of my personal favorite pieces of advice, probably the only piece of advice, is that if you have a family of 5 or 6 people, I think it would be fair to say that not everybody in the family has to work for the business. At some point, it's actually better off if one of the people in the family actually does not work for the business. In fact, in some cases, you can even pay them not to work for the business.
Right.
Because
that's right. Yeah.
They're disruptive and they don't bring a level of meritocracy or competence allowed it. And we've all seen this, but I've seen somebody who grew up, give him a sales job, sales team of 10, 15 people. Well, he needs a little bit more money. He's young, he's got married. So what are you going to do? You got to give him a supervisor's job. So now he's a sales manager. But all he wants to do is golf and play around.
Right.
Well, he is the worst individual to have in that position, because that position is a very difficult position to do well.
Right.
Everybody says, well, no, it's not. All you've got to do is show up, have coffee and drinks, and take people out for dinner.
You know,
and I'm being exaggerated here.
Yeah. Well,
but that guy would be
much.
better off to be paid not to show up and get somebody who is diligent about administering the task and put him in that position.
Because all of the people on the sales team, if you're sales manager, all of those guys are going, oh, this is the way you're supposed to do this.
Oh
So I'm
yeah.
going to be golfing with clients more often and make fewer calls. And pretty soon everybody's acting the same way because the guy in the family's acting that way. And they figure that, well,
Right.
they're part of the family.
And the guy who's actually driven and wants to actually succeed at growing his book and succeeding in the company, he'll end up leaving because he's actually not recognized for the work that he's doing.
Right.
And he may be a little disruptive in his task, and the family say that guy he's always being pushy. Well, yeah, he's being pushy for the right reason.
Yeah. And it's funny that you should bring up the idea about paying somebody who's not in the business. There is an interesting story about Magic Johnson, who's done very well in business, and he had some siblings that he simply paid and said, look, I don't need you in the business, but I will pay you so you don't interfere with what I'm trying to get done.
Exactly my point. Yeah.
Yeah. We could have a whole discussion about whether or not that was really the right way to raise a kid, but that's another story, as they say. So I think we're all saying stop acting as a family and start acting as a business. So now the question then is, well, okay, how do you do that? What are some of the things that you actually do inside the business? And we've pretty much kind of agreed that focusing on the bottom line would be the measure of results that you're really looking for. In other words, make it a meritocracy, have everybody in the business and the family get measured based on their performance. And of course, remember, you got to have a plan in order to be able to carefully figure out, well, what should the performance of a particular job be? A lot of small businesses have a difficult time coming up with that.
If I could, I kind of come here from a little bit of an out of the US point of view. A lot of time, and I'm going to make a generalization that I hope is not true, but I see it. A lot of time, American companies are very conscientious about this week's results, this month's cash flow, profit and loss on the short term. And yet we have started to do business with Japanese companies, Korean companies. I've personally done business with some rather large Japanese companies and a very large Korean company. And I found it fascinating that their overall mission is not about this month's results. It's not about next month's results. In fact, quite often it's a 5-year plan. And in many, many instances, these companies will actually take a negative cash position for a period of years, understanding that they're developing their plant, equipment, relationships, and market so that they will be reaping, just like farming, over a 4 or 5 year period. The biggest issue I have with family businesses is people want to get paid today. They want to get paid this week, and they want to get paid next month. They are very, very confused about cash versus resources. They're confused, in my mind, about profits versus retained earnings and retained resources. Mm-hmm. And I think most successful family businesses have had somebody who's built it up over a period of time, and during that period of time, denied themselves a lot of income for a period of time, invested into the systems and processes so that at some time they could grow. And then you bring family members in later on, and they want to get paid today. Well, actually, the business is successful because of a long-term strategic result. Now, to my mind, that is the most important facet of distinguishing family from business. How do we come with a long-term vision for what true resource growth is?
That's a good point, John. And one of the things that you guys may have discussed earlier that I wasn't aware of, but part of this issue of merit is that it's a wise decision to take the newest members, the children, and put them to work somewhere else so they can really establish themselves before they come into the business. And I think that does a couple of things. First of all, it enables them to work in an environment where they have to use their merit because they will not be given something simply because they belong to the company. The other thing, it helps them understand a business from a different perspective. So we may well have mentioned that, but it ties in with what I think I hear you saying, John. So
it's hard to do, though, when you've got you grow up and you've got a family who's come through, they've got their bachelor's degrees and they're in the mid-20s, and you want them to be involved, and yet how do we get them involved in a way that, so it is a difficult process. You can't say, well, just come on in and work with us.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. And good point, Ray. And in that same vein, I think, this next point, put family members where they can really contribute. I mean, that's really, if they go out and they work someplace else, they have other experiences, maybe they go to college, come back, maybe they got a business degree. They need to do something to bring, sort of cross-pollinate, the business. So that's good. But then at the same time, I believe that what happens is, you can take me to task on this if you think this is wrong, but I think many times what happens is that people trust their own family and they don't trust anybody else. And that may generally be true. I know that there are many cultures around the world where family are the people who touch the money, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not unknown, that family members take advantage of their family as well. So I mean, that doesn't ensure, say, honesty. But as a result, for some reason, this unearned trust seems to be an excuse for why people are put in those positions. But I think really that is a shortcoming of the top manager, him or herself.
Right.
They may not have brought them up they may not have built their company in such a way as to be able to trust and expect trusted and honest responses from all of its employees, and therefore sort of failed in that part of the management. And of course, Ray, as you well know, and John, you too, there are ways to assess trust in people, and you do have to earn some of that trust. But employees should be allowed to develop the trust, and then then they're confident in you when, in fact, you don't put family members, say, in the spot that they deserve after 10 years and expertise that has been developed in the previous job, et cetera, et cetera. So, and therefore, the overarching kind of philosophy ought to be merit and meritocracy. The business made it on merit. The founder of the business made it effectively on merit because the business made it on merit. And hopefully and I think founders do a pretty good job of raising the second generation on merit because they had hard knocks. But that third generation is notoriously, I guess, smitten by the statistics.
Right.
They tend to go out of business. They tend to be spoiled. They tend not to have the same kind of understanding about where the money came from, and then they make bad decisions. And part of those bad decisions includes, putting their own kids in the business and sweeping the floor. And maybe they're terrible, maybe they don't even sweep the floor, but they come in and they get paid, and everybody sees that there's favoritism. And so choose your management carefully based on how they fit the job. Job fit is key, and that's based on a personality for particular kinds of jobs and the experience and skills. So what are some of the ways, this isn't a complete list, and so I'll need you guys' help, but what do you do in order to be able to build up your own family and, of course, your employees? Well, get educated. And I'm not talking about going to school necessarily, but anybody in business has to learn constantly. If they don't like learning, and if they want to stick where they are, say they're a great plumber and they've learned the plumbing business, but they don't care about learning about business. That's a problem. That's not, they might be successful on their own, but they may never make it past that. You got to stay open to what's going on and learn anything you don't learn. You might not even be good at it, but if you understand it, you can find somebody who could be good at it.
Right.
So Ron,
Yeah.
As we're going through this, one of the greatest skills that I think families need to relearn is the art of fighting, the art of wrestling, the
Okay.
art of having dialogue. And the reason I say that is historically, and we all know that when we've got young kids, the boss is the mom and the dad. And at the end of the day, why do I do something? Because I told you. And that's just the way it is. And, now the kids are 30, 40, and 50. And at some point, this trump card, this ace, still comes out. And that is the most damaging part of a decision-making process. So what I would say here is that, can we learn how to fight? The four of us on this panel have all thought about our opinions on what's important.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a matter of, Ron saying this is what we're going to do, and you guys are all, from time to time, each of us goes back and we go, well, he could be right. Maybe he is right. And we've had to pass out those debates and come to a conclusion, and then not be egotistically damaged as a result.
Right.
So I would say there's a real skill that family members need to learn, and that is how to debate. I call it fighting, friendly fighting, or wrestling, to come through with the most privileged outcome, not based on seniority.
Well, and it has to be based on experience, data. It needs to be people need to be measured in the things that they bring forward, so they're just not coming up with wacky stuff. We talked a little bit about personality and having some folks who tend to be seat of the pants kinds of folks versus highly detailed and structured, in kind of getting those personalities to mix. And I think it happens in a family. We did chat a little bit about that, but I think you're right. And it's almost a cultural thing, which is a bothersome one. And we don't need to stray too far into things going on in our greater culture, but it does overlap. And that is that you want people whose inherent personality is not offended by everything somebody says, because suggesting that, without even saying to someone that they're wrong, suggesting that another way might be possible today actually offends some folks.
Yeah, it's interesting this morning.
There's not any room in business for people like that.
Yeah, I think this morning I was looking at some stuff, and one of the items that tied in with our conversation here is that, in terms of getting educated, we can go to the STEM things, all those, data-driven things that make an organization effective. But what's overlooked too often, and it kind of goes to the point that John was making, is that how do you develop your emotional IQ, your ability to be able to manage your feelings and do it in such a way that it grows the organization instead of grows resentment. And I thought that was an interesting observation, and I think it's a problem we have, not only in terms of family business, but in general. We don't teach our children, our grandchildren, how to handle their emotions, particularly when it comes to those things that make it difficult for us to have conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Well, actually, we do teach them how to handle our emotions, Ray. By default, they follow us, and we're not necessarily doing it well. Just a confession.
Right. So
I don't know. I think when you go into a college campus and you have safe places for students, can you just imagine if we had to have safe places in businesses? There's no safe place. No, the safe place has got to be in your head. And so and I don't mean to be dumping on young people, but I mean, it's only come up in the last 5 or 10 years. Some of the statistics that we went over a few weeks ago indicate that in work situations, there's a certain amount of truth to that about the attitudes of younger generations. And so you get some of us older folks maybe bringing up kids of that age, and the expectation is, hey, I raised you to be a boy named Sue. You can take this. I wanted you to get beat up and defend yourself in your lifetime. So there's Johnny Cash, I think.
Yeah.
And, but then you turn it on its head, and it's like, oh, well, if you don't like what I'm saying, even though it may not be directed at you, and you feel a little bit bad about it, you got to have some place to cool off that's safe where you won't have anybody intruding. We can't survive in business if we have people working for us like that. That's going to be a problem because they are going to have to get over it and get back to work. And
well, yeah, part of that is the skill set should be the benefit of the team, the outcome of the vision and mission, and we should be a little bit less inward, narcissistically driven. And so, you know, at the end of the day, the four of us here are attempting to bring some light on a subject without any one of us taking all the limelight. We're supposed to, and so this is part of the goal here. How do we help other people in their family businesses? How do we help ourselves in our family businesses?
Right. Well, and that's the teamwork aspect. And as we've mentioned so many times previously on other programs, the whole idea of being in business is that the founder, the owner, doesn't have to be there anymore. That they have managed to get their business to run without them. And so isn't that all part of it? It's like you got to build the team, not yourself. It's not.
Yeah, and I think tying in with that, Ron, you know, we talked a little bit about having an advisory board that I think in many family business, I don't see that. And I think there's real value in having people on the outside looking in to give you insights or ideas, because internally you become very myopic. You really don't understand some of the dynamics that are maybe tearing at the fabric of the business.
Yeah, right. And then, of course, you know, I do think that there is one thing we want to kind of remember too, not to go too far on one side of the teeter-totter, but there's always this respect of, it needs to be a respect of the craft itself. It's like, what is done in this business? So many times the founder is a really good at mechanics, and maybe they've figured out how to really exploit a small niche and figure out how that business works. Well, you know, it's important to remember that these core competencies that the company has that maybe only the original founder had, but those company expertise in these various areas really need to be preserved and celebrated in a way. So in that way, it's important that the generations pass on the important skill levels to the next generations, even if, say, if it's a welding shop, maybe all the family members can't weld, but they need to have a respect for that. If you're doing welding, they've got to understand the basics. And so sometimes, you know, you get this MBA syndrome, where the kid comes, he's got his MBA and he expects to tell dad, well, this is how you do this. And dad's going, you know, you still have to be able to weld a joint that will not fail, or it doesn't really matter what your MBA stuff, you know, is about. Right. You gotta weld this thing properly, because that's what we do here. So I think that, you know, I just was as I going through looking at this list, I'm reminding myself, you know, we don't want to change everything. Some of these things are awfully important to remember and to continue doing.
And the flip side of that, Ron, is sometimes the very reasons why a business grew and was prolific over a period of 10, 20, 30 years, the reason why there was a niche and the owner and the starter made it successful has now changed. And that reason itself is no longer a major part of the process. And things, not only that, but the new generation, the digital revolution has actually now come in. And this is one of the problems I have seen, is that there was a whole generation where we're kind of past it now, I think, but where a new generation came in with computer technological skills and virtual skills. And a lot of the older school were not able to go and entertain that as being valuable. And I think that time has passed us. I think everybody in business today pretty much is integrated into a virtual online world. But those of us who haven't done that transition, and the new generation is coming in, we're in for some problems there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think you're right, and there is that struggle. That's where that newly minted MBA can come in and do that. And I'm not suggesting that things don't change in a business.
Right.
If you're in the welding business, you might have a robot doing the welding now because they do a better job. Okay, fine. It's the weld still has to be perfect.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that's what I'm talking about is, okay, where's the quality we deliver in this company? How can we make that better? And then how can we automate it and go forward? By the way, and I don't want to get off track too much, but we're coming to the end here to their sort of summary slide. Your comment, John, about you think we're through this, I think is going to change again with all the AI that's going on.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
It is a hyper curve on top of the digital curve that's already there.
Yeah, it is on top of it. But I'm wondering how, I'm thinking of all of the clients that I've worked with over the years. I can't think of one that is ready to embrace AI in any way, shape, or form.
So if we look back on technology, and we've all seen this, there was 20, 30 years ago, the IT team of a large corporation had the ability to hold that corporation hostage or not. And the role of that position became more and more invasive and important. And so now we've got the same thing going on with the AI technology. The ability for that technology to be overemphasized or underemphasized is what could hold us hostage.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a navigation. I think it's like a rapid. We're going down a very, very long, large river, and we've got a couple of rapids. And I totally agree with you. We've got a very large rapid coming up, and the way we navigate it or we hold off could be important. Some businesses, I don't think will have any effect on in terms of their manufacturing process, but maybe it will have a huge effect on their relational sales process, who they can talk to. Because right now, if you have a look at it, the advent of the internet and being so able to do banking internationally and do trading internationally, there are companies who've gone from local national companies in the US to being global entities that they are trading all over the world. And of course, pioneered by Korean companies and by Japanese companies who, by their very nature, had to do it in order to exist. But now American companies are doing the same thing. So I think we've got some really big rapids, and you can either make them too important or you can fail to make them important.
Yeah, right. So here are the dreaded D's. Ed, take us through these things. We've discussed most of them, but I thought it was a fun way to kind of wrap up our discussion about managing.
Yeah, I think as human beings, we think linear. So we have been in a business for 20 years, things are going well. We kind of think, I'm not aware of any issues right now. We're going to go another 20 years. It doesn't work that way. Life is going to deal us cards sometimes that are very difficult to deal with.
You mean because you die? That's what you mean.
You could have a death, disability, disagreement with ownership, divorce, and disruption. These are factors you really are difficult to control, but they're out there. They're a risk. And if you're not planning for some type of transition and valuation, it could bring down the business. So basically, a buy-sell agreement is an agreement that almost everybody should have, but very few families understand them. They should be done properly, and it should identify who's going to run the business if the president passes away, as an example, and how is his family going to get rewarded for his shares of stock. Right. And that has to be determined while everybody's at the table, because otherwise, when one of these events happens, the other side of the family doesn't feel the same way as the ownership. They think the company is worth way more than what the ownership believes. and it could kill the company. And then they start bringing in their experts. I've been involved with one situation. We had 5 valuations done. And all kinds of attorneys involved. It cost over $1 million to settle. You want to resolve that now. It's simple to do. You get together with your owners, you identify the valuation, who's going to run the company, and how transfers of stock will happen.
And
I think that's a great point, Ed. I think one of the challenges that, we've seen as we work with these companies is that it's really difficult sometimes because they're undercapitalized, and getting the buy-sell agreement done and the insurance done is sometimes a luxury for them. And as a consequence, when one of these deeds happen, they don't have things in place to enable the business to move forward.
Yeah. And these are, of course, all management issues. These are things that need to be managed as opposed to just wait until you die and then you've got the problem. So let me ask, well, any one of you, how does a small business person, say, who happens to be the president, lead their family into managing the 4 or 5 Ds?
I think it has to be done with the ownership, and I think it has to be an agreement between them, and I think you got to keep the spouses out of it. You bring them in after you come up with the process of valuation and who's going to run the company. Then you bring them in and explain it to them, and they can ask their questions. And if the ownership believes that they may need to make an adjustment, that's great. But really, in reality, ownership has to agree on the solution as well as their spouses. But I don't think you want to get the spouses involved in running the business unless they add value to running the business.
Right.
Very, very, very correct. There are examples, and I know of one example where a husband and wife were involved in the business. She was a secondary player in the business, but he died early. And through a lot of debate, she took on the leadership of the company because she already knew how the company operated and did a very good job of running it. Not only that, she grew it. And so it can happen, but she already had full knowledge and operational knowledge of it, and she was known in the industry. So I think it's a very powerful asset. But you're right, just because you're married to somebody doesn't give you the right to run the company. You've got to have involvement.
Exactly.
And I think that's what Ed was saying. It's, you have to separate a spouse who understands and knows a business from one who simply is on the payroll. I think that's the issue.
Absolutely.
So I'll put each one of you on the spot. What do each of you think is the #1 management issue for every, say, president of a family business?
Clear lines of communication for the people who are actually running the business, and not to be sideswiped or affected by outside lines of communication. Keep the decision-making within the structure.
Yeah, okay. Good.
And I was going to say, I think, being able to keep the children or whoever, is involved with the family outside of the network until they develop the skills needed, and then bring them in and put them in a position where they can actually make a difference, as opposed to giving them something simply because they're family.
Yeah. Yeah.
From my perspective, I would focus on priorities related to the business rather than the family. And if the business is taken care of, everybody else will be taken care of in the long run.
Yeah, that's yeah. Well, sage advice from all 3 of you. Thank you very much for a really good discussion on management. And then next week we talk about skills. What are the skills that are going to be needed in the company, perhaps in the family? How do we get them? What kinds of training apparatus do you put in place in order to be able to keep everybody moving the right direction? So join us back here next week for that, and we'll see you then. Thank you so much.